Welcome to the Align Life podcast by yours truly, Dr. Tiffany. How about we get out that magnifying glass and look at every part of your life? The awesome, the suck, and everything in between. There's so much beauty in you. Stop being afraid of what isn't good enough and let's double down on what is together. It's about your truth and your life, aligned. Hey guys. Welcome back to the Align Life. It's been a siesta or so since we've had Callyn on. Welcome, girl. She's in her apartment. And if you are watching the video, she has her mirror in the background. And I remember like as a little girl, she would have little messages on her mirror in her bathroom. And I'm like, oh, do you have affirmations on your mirror? And she's like, yes. See, this is why she's on here regularly, because I think it's important to talk to people who are doing things every day. Like they have the habits to figure out how to be their best in everything that they do. So we're going to talk about your experience over the last few months that is like fresh in your brain. And it's on anxiety and fear and panic. Probably. I don't know. What other words would you describe how you felt during that little snippet of life?
Yeah, like fear of like what's going to happen. Like, oh my God, like the unknown, anxiety. I wouldn't say depression, but like kind of sad. I mean, It all kind of goes together a little bit.
Right. Well, and we know that if we stay sad for too long, then that is when depression kind of sneaks in. But I wanted to talk about this because so many people don't talk about the stuck and they don't talk about the suck and they don't talk about the icky stuff. And I think it's probably the most important thing to talk about because as we continue to go through the stuck, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. There's always the breakthrough at the end of the breakdown. And so many times we quit before we get there. So that it's getting really uncomfortable and now I'm going to retreat, but now I'm going to stay anxious and I'm going to stay in a panic and I'm going to stay overwhelmed and I'm going to stay not feeling heard and all the things that happen instead of just trusting and walking through the sticky mud that you were in. So I want to just go into the emotional feelings and then how it felt in your body, because I feel like this will help so many people, not only adults, but kids, and not only kids individually, but even parents watching their kids go through stuff, because you're not a mom yet. But as a parent, sometimes we want to protect our kids from going through icky stuff because that doesn't feel good. And we don't like when our kids hurt. It's like one of the worst things ever. But when you trust that when they go through it, they're going to experience a breakthrough, that's what allows us as parents to continue to encourage you to take the brave steps and to be encouraged and to continually believe that there's something good that's going to happen. So can you talk about in that state of anxiety for 5 days, 7 days, 8 days? It was a long time.
Week and a half.
It was a long time, right? So nine or 10 days. Can you tell me all the things that you felt, like in your mind, in your heart, in your gut, in your body? And then let's just kind of get a picture because everyone will be able to relate to it in some way, shape, or form. Okay.
So like I've obviously had anxiety before, like small parts of it, like you just get nervous for speeches or like things like that. This situation was a little different. It was about a week and a half of me feeling like kind of like a heart attack. Like I was tight in the chest. I couldn't breathe. I physically wasn't eating. Like it caused me to like not have an appetite. I would eat food and it like didn't sound good, didn't feel good. So I just didn't eat, wasn't hungry, wasn't drinking water, didn't want to exercise, wanted to lay in my bed, wanted to cry all the time. Everything triggered me. I felt like sad, and I think being misunderstood is one of the worst things ever because what your intent isn't always what other people perceive it to be. And so I felt like I was doing something so bad, but I knew that I wasn't. So I had to like get past the anxiety feeling of like, what are other people going to think or things like that. And that's what hurt me the most because I care so much about what other people think of me. And it's bad and good, like you have to take into consideration your friends and your peers' feelings and thoughts, but also like what you think matters the most. And that's what I've learned. Like, okay, if they think that is not what actually happened. Like they have no idea what actually happened. And I felt sad for a really long time. I felt like I didn't know what was like the next day, what was going to bring, like something totally different could happen. It could totally turn around like, okay, it has to get better, right? It has to get better. Oh, no. And that was the scariest part, like the fear and the unknown. Cause like I felt tight for so long. I was like, there's no way it could get worse. No way. And then it's like, okay, well, that was bad. That was worse. So we have to get past the next day. Like there's not another option at this point. Like I feel gross, but I know that it's going to get better. Like these next 5 days might be super uncomfortable and icky and we're stuck, but these last 30 days might be awesome. And we had to get through that to get to this. So I would say the majority of it, I felt like tight and unsure because I couldn't control the situation at this point anymore. I'm a controller. So I want everything to be how I plan it to be and how I expect it to be. And I'm going to do everything in my power to get to that point because I'm going to follow the stepping stones because that's exactly how I have it planned to be. And it wasn't like that. So for me, it was like allowing whatever happened to happen. And I was vulnerable in the position that I had to be along for the ride to just see what was going to happen.
So I have a lot of questions from this. I'm going to first start in, it made you feel better and more accepted when you knew that you had support behind you, correct?
For sure.
Okay. Second, what if you don't know that you have support behind you? Or what if you wouldn't have support behind you? Can you see now going through that, how that would have been different?
For sure. Like my friends and family definitely were like my upbringing, like, hey, let's go do this. Let's get your mind off it. Or we totally support you. Like, I'm sorry you're going through this kind of thing. I think it'd be really, really hard if I didn't have the support I had. And if anyone is in that situation, I would say you just have to keep believing that your side is true or whatever you're going through, in your heart that that's what you want to do. And people that support you you'll find people that support you in your decision. So it might not be right now, but just get through it and you'll find those people agree or align with what you're fighting for, even though it might be hard right now. But these next 5 days or this next month for you guys, if you're struggling, the next 3 months will be awesome. So just have to.
Well, and you just, you did take it a minute at a time, an hour at a time, because you couldn't even really sleep. You wanted to sleep, but you couldn't sleep, this is what happens in stress and anxiety and adrenaline. Brain is the brain is on overdrive and it's tired, but that body isn't able to come down with it. Now you have experience in meditation and journaling and you have a lot of tools. Did you use them?
It's actually interesting. So I couldn't for the week. That was awful. Like my body could not meditate or journal. My high alert, couldn't get words out, couldn't express, and like I had to get through it. And that was really hard for me because I've always been, if I've struggled, I just write it down. It's fine. Like, but I was at such a block that like I could not write, I couldn't journal, everything was thrown off. My whole routine was thrown off. So like not what I'm used to at all.
Which is,
yeah. So, I
just did a video on this and I talked about pattern interruption and disruption. This is a perfect example of what happened. So life happens, or we reach for a goal that we've never reached for, or we do something that we have never done before, which changes your brain because it now has to do something that is never done before. Enter the situation for you. It has never done this before. It's never had to do this before. You do not know what to expect. When you normally could have journaled through it, that's not it. Meditate through it, that's not it. Talk therapy with whoever, that's not it. Sleep, That's not it. Run, go for like how many times when you felt nervous or anxious, you just go for, you couldn't do anything. You couldn't binge on ice cream, couldn't eat. So what happened in this like beautiful chaos, I call this, you didn't think it was at the moment, but what happens in the beautiful chaos of breaking down is that your body and mind had to up level to a totally different level that you had never known. And the only way you could integrate that was rest. And you didn't think you were resting because you didn't feel rested, but that's all you did. I mean,
That's all I could do. Yeah.
you didn't really shower. You didn't really brush your teeth.
I remember that. Yeah. That was gross. Like, ooh.
But being okay with, okay, this is all I got. this is all I can do for this day. Maybe tomorrow will be different. Maybe it will be better. Maybe it won't be. But I think that is like when we look at what happens when we go through really tough times, whether it's with our friends, with our family, in a relationship, whatever it is, when we go through tough times that we have never had to deal with anything like it before, we will always come out a different person. Would you agree?
Yeah. And even the like, I've been a planner. So like I mentioned, it's a Monday. And on Thursdays, the rest of the week, I have it planned out, right? Well, this situation, I had to literally live hour by hour and not know exactly what was happening next because that was the only way I could like breathe. Like I didn't want to think about what was tomorrow. I didn't want to think about what was Wednesday. Like I had to, okay, you have an hour of this and then we'll go to the next hour and then we'll go to the next hour. And that was the only way I could get through it, which is totally okay. And I think society doesn't make it okay that we live like in the moment because everyone's like, oh, when are you getting married? When are you doing this? When are you doing this? Like everything's planned ahead. And it was kind of nice to like not have to worry about anything the rest of the week, even though it was an icky situation, to just live in the moment you were in. And that was the only way I could like get
Survive.
through. Yeah.
Yeah. So has that changed? Has your like needing to plan, control freak, any of that?
No, I don't know what's happening the rest of the week, honestly, right now.
Okay. So
I know I have to, yeah, it has. I have to work this week, but I don't know what else I have to do. And that's totally okay. It's actually awesome.
Yeah.
Like spur of the moment. Oh, let's go hang out, whatever, in 15 minutes. Like way more fun. Like, Cal, what were you doing? Like, why did you have to have everything so strict and so like,
because that's the only way you can control everything around you, by the way.
And why would I don't want that.
No, but you thought that's what created order. That's what created consistency and certainty and expectation management. And this had to wipe you off your feet and say, all right, girl, we're going to reset this thing. You're going to be misunderstood. You're going to be sad. You're going to be miserable. You're going to be all these things, but you're still going to be safe and you're still going to survive and you're going to come out a totally different human at the end.
And I am.
What else would you say is different?
I would say I'm taking more risks in friendships and things because I know like the last situation, like the safety factor. I remember you saying to me, like, you're safe. This is icky, but like you're safe. Everyone around you is with you and there's no reason to be scared of your safety or like what was like your situation, your environment. And I feel like that's kind of like changed a little bit with my friends and stuff. Like I was always so hesitant to do things because of safety. Like, what if someone got hurt or like, what if that's not the right thing to do? But like, there's a lot of fun things that you can still do. That is a little bit of a risk, but like, it's not bad, you know? So I feel like I'm a little bit more like not as rigid, like a little bit more, okay, let's do it. Like, let's go do this without having a plan or like, it's going to be okay. I'm safe.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's interesting because once we determine that we're safe in whatever area of life we're talking about, then you can start to play for quality of life and fun. And that's what you're doing right now. So all is good. Family's good. Friends are good. What all the things that mean the most in your life, it's safe, right? So now you get to play for fun. You get to play for quality of life. You get to play for adventure. You get to play for experience. You get whatever you want to is beyond what is considered safe. Whereas before, safe was rule follower, rigid, perfectionist, high achiever. And all of those are not good or bad, but it depends on how you perform them, right? All of them have the ability to be extreme, which you typically took the extreme, more extreme path.
That way.
Yeah, a little bit further right. So one of the other things I remember talking with you about, and we talked about this a lot as a family, not only like our immediate family, but extended family, grandma, grandpa, was what is the best case scenario and what is the worst case scenario? And from day one, you and I talked about it. But as soon after that was what we consistently talked about. Okay, best case scenario would be XYZ, worst case would be XYZ. Well, is that actually worst case? Could it get worse? Well, maybe. Could I handle that? Yep. And as soon as you knew that whatever the worst case scenario was, you didn't need to like it, but you knew you could handle it. That is when you started living more for like 2 hours in advance versus 1 hour, right? You started looking a little bit ahead of like, hey, do you want to go for a walk in a few hours? Oh, so now she's moving out of survival mode, knowing that there's other things that are good for her body that she has threshold for. That was one of the best things that I saw from a parent perspective. So whoever's listening from a parent perspective, when your kids are going through tough stuff that you don't love, they need to go through the tough stuff that we don't love so that they can get the breakthrough. Helping them mentally work through it, emotionally work through it, and physically work through it is a totally different thing. So being able to help you see like, oh, okay, I guess if that's worst case, it's not my ideal, but I'm not going to die.
Right. That's what I had to like. This is awful, but like, I'm not dying. So.
Right. So anything else you have to say about this? I think this is a really, really vulnerable topic. So first of all, thank you. It's an important topic to make a priority so people feel like they can talk about the stuff that isn't great, because you knew you weren't going to stay in this place, but you were scared for how long you did stay in this place because you never have been there before.
Not like this.
No. I mean, your ACL was trauma, but
not anxiety.
But not, yes, like I can't control anything. I can't breathe. I can't eat. I can't poop. I can't sleep. I can't smile. I can't do anything. Right?
Yeah. I would say the biggest thing that came out of it was how vulnerable I needed to be with other people. Like my roommates can say this, like, I don't cry in front of them. I don't show emotion. Like I'm kind of like I'm cool, even cool. Like, okay, nothing affects her. She's tough. And so I knew I needed to like be vulnerable for them because they've never seen that part of me, and that I'm human and I have these emotions, and that doesn't make me any less. So like, I remember walking in the apartment and crying, and it was my 2 roommates that were there, and they're like, what? I just cried in their arms, and they're like, okay, wow. Yep. We need to help her. Like, this is going to be tricky, but we're here for her. And for me to like vocalize all my emotions to them, I think they really respected that also, because I've never done that. And therefore they helped me, like, because I spoke to them and I was able to like give them a piece of my mind and be vulnerable and cry and yell and do all these things. Like, they were able to help me. And if I wouldn't have done that, I would not have their support. Right. So like, be vulnerable with the people that don't usually see you vulnerable and that you need their help.
Right.
Like, I cry around my parents, whatever, but my friends, that's kind of a different, when you cry around your friends, it's a little bit of a different, you know? Mm-hmm. And so if I wouldn't have done that, I don't know. My roommates have been super awesome. So that's my advice.
Well, and they've been your rocks, and you you weren't sure they were.
Right.
None of us are sure we are until we crack a part of ourselves open and see how somebody could actually support us, because the biggest need in our life is to love and be loved, right? And that you allowed yourself to be loved in that moment of cracking your got my pooping in group armor.
Yep.
Right? Like Cal's always okay. Cal's good. Cal will take care of everything else.
Cal will take care of other people.
Yeah. But that didn't mean you were always okay and that you were always good. You still had those feelings that you sometimes did want to vocalize for support, right? But didn't think you could.
Right.
And this experience was one you knew you needed to step into.
And I should have before. Like there's other instances where I've cried or I just wanted them to listen, like to have people listen. But I've always had it in the back of my mind that, okay, well, most people know that I have my shit together and I want to keep it that way. I don't want them to know that I cry and that I have down periods. Like I want to be this up level, strong person that they don't know that I have emotions, like no. And people will respect me more now that I've been vulnerable with them because I'm not this fantasy figure that doesn't have emotion and doesn't struggle, like they're going to respect me more because I have these struggles and still hold myself to a high standard and still am at this level, but I have all these emotions that other people have. Because before they're like, she doesn't cry. She doesn't, because they never knew. I didn't share it. So.
And you can't help someone who doesn't want help. I mean, I remember you and I talking about that, just relationships in general. Well, I don't ever want to show that I'm weak, which you meant by was sad or crying or whatever that is. And I'm like, whoa. Vulnerability is strong. It takes so much more work to be like internal work, to be vulnerable than to look like you got your poop in a group. Right?
Sure. And I didn't know that.
Yeah. And you don't know that until you know that. And then it's like, oh my, I could not do life without these people.
And then I've learned that, like, wow, these people are awesome. And that's the part of anxiety or depression or anything you're going through that they say, okay, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Well, what does that mean? Like for me, I have an amazing set or group of people around me, support system that I did not know I had. So I've gained the friendships and all those that I didn't know were that strong and that they were going to be there for me no matter what. And that's my light. So that's kind of cool.
That's amazing. And that's the breakthrough. That's totally the breakthrough. Now you have a whole new foundation of your life that you didn't know you had.
And the relationship's different with them. Like, holy moly, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah. Everything is in divine timing. Everything is when you need it the most. And in that moment of not being able to breathe, not being able to sleep, not being able to poop, not being able to eat, not being able to move, that's when you needed it the most. You didn't need it. You didn't need it. You didn't need it.
Didn't need it.
Then, like you did now, right? Back in the day, you didn't need it that much. It would have been nice, but you weren't ready to actually bare your soul to say, I need help. Any other words of wisdom before we sign off?
I don't think so.
Thank you. This is another part of vulnerability for you to be out there because the world does see you as having your poop in a group.
I know that. That's where I struggled.
But in that, it never means that you don't have emotion and that you don't have struggle. It means that you are destined for greatness. And along the way, which every single person is destined for greatness, along the way when the lessons are coming. When you feel that little like, whoop, here we go. We're gonna learn something now again. And now I'm going to integrate that. I'm going to take that and I'm going to be better for it. That's what you've always done. You just didn't have the vulnerable side. You didn't have
how I got there and how it was a struggle.
Yes. You're going to be able to help a lot of people just having this side of you. It's like having more of a feminine energy with your driven personality and your not need, but kind of to achieve always. Now you have the feminine, you have the flow. It's more fun. It's more creative. It's not so rigid. And that's how now you'll figure out like, okay, so my next steps are this. And then you go. Love you. I'm so proud of you. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening and following the Align Life podcast with Dr. Tiffany. If you love this and can think of anyone who needs to hear about it, would you mind sharing with them? Find me online at drtiffanyjohnson.com, where you can find out more about my memberships, courses, mentoring, and any upcoming events. To learn more about chiropractic for you and your family, go to htchiro.com and follow our social pages. I can't wait to connect with you soon, and until then, be you, be aligned.